Yay. Hello, and welcome to today's meeting of the Commonwealth Club World Affairs of California, our new name after merging with World Affairs near the end of last year. I'm Eric Siegel, chair of the club's Personal Growth Forum and your host for today. Our speaker, Kara Hauser, was a high-performing executive running major real estate developments while raising 2 kids. She spent 20 years learning how to thrive in the 24/7, always-on real estate development business, and her teams produced over 3,000 homes in the San Francisco Bay Area, creating over $1.5 billion in value. Trying to be everything to everyone except herself, she hit the wall and burned out. She's now spent years focusing on what can be done to help people in burnout. She constructed a practical and inspiring guidebook, Burned Out to Lit Up, Ditch the Grind and Reclaim Your Life. Is for people who are so burned out they don't have the emotional, physical, or financial resilience to follow the usual internet tips of relax, learn yoga, go for a run, brainstorm your ideal job. On a personal note, I went through burnout myself, working crazy intense hours as a data communications and internet consultant for startups. I was also chairing panels at industry conferences, wrote a couple of technical books. Basically, every functioning brain cell went into my job. Personal life got lost somewhere along the way. I broke 2 teeth by grinding them in the night. And some friends finally staged an intervention and told me to quit or die. But the problem is that when you're totally burned out, I can't decide what shirt to wear in the morning, much less make a big decision like that. Take any of that simple advice. So I stumbled along for a few more years before slowly finding my way out. And that's what made this approach so refreshing when I heard about it. It meets you when you're where you are, with barely enough energy to get through the day and zero interest in adding more expensive self-care to your overflowing to-do list. I know that Kara will be able to help those of us struggling with burnout. And so now it's my pleasure to ask you to join me in welcoming her to the club and to our podium.
Hello. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this, Eric, and I've loved chatting with you and preparing for this. What a delight it's been.
Well, I think we ought to start by just, a bit of background about what burnout was like for you and how did this all get started?
Well, I, like a lot of people, was trying to just do it all, be everything to everyone, all the time, except myself. And I put my own needs, desires, wants, fun stuff, whatever, lower and lower and lower on the to-do list, thinking if I was just a little more efficient, if I just worked a little bit more, if I just chopped off one more thing that felt frivolous, if I just slept a little less, if I just did a little bit better, that I would be able to get it all done, that I'd be able to get to the bottom of the to-do list and eventually get to the stuff down there for me. But of course, as I learned the hard way, you never get to the bottom of the to-do list. The demands of the rest of the world never go away. And if you're a doer, and if you're the kind of person that finds that extra gear and gets it done all the time, you'll find that more stuff keeps coming to you. The more you bat away, the more ends up on your plate. So this was a recipe for disaster. And unfortunately, I was in a pretty fried, burned out, exhausted, hanging by a thread state when there was a family health emergency with my son. And it just caused me essentially to snap. And I remember being at our friend's house, those friends are here, sobbing uncontrollably the next morning, just ugly, crazy cries that sent the kids just running to all corners of the house. And my friend said to me, Kara, you might consider a sabbatical. And I was like, sabbatical? I'm not a professor. And are those for regular people? And also, do I really deserve it? Do I have it that bad? What am I complaining about? I've obviously failed to get here. I should be able to do it all like everyone else. I also thought I needed permission somehow from some outer source. I don't know where I thought that was coming from. But of course, that would not be forthcoming because the person who needed to make that decision was me. And I eventually did learn that over a period of time. And that set the stage for planning what would end up being an almost 2-year hiatus from the world of work to really get my act back together, get my health back together, inside and outside, and reclaim my life.
Yeah, I think one of the things that was important for me and maybe for people here was I didn't even recognize that I was burned out. I mean, it's in startups. You're supposed to sleep in the office. Nobody goes home. It's a badge of honor, right? It's supposed to be energizing, okay? And so I didn't want to admit that I was, fried.
Yes.
And no one was going to tell me that I was fried because it was too convenient for them that I was working 24/7. Mm-hmm. So how do you, recognize it in yourself? If you're just kind of going along, mm-hmm. What should you be looking for to say, okay, I've got to do something?
First of all, I think everybody here probably can feel a little bit of what you're saying. It's just in the water. It's in our culture that's normal and acceptable. And so we feel like failures and thus won't even admit it to ourselves, much less anyone else. Maybe we don't want to admit being weak. Maybe, who knows? I know that was part of it for me. I mean, 15 years ago, even 10, 15 years ago, talking about mental health in public was a lot less okay than it is now. I didn't even want to admit I was taking a stress reduction class because I thought that would make me seem like I just couldn't hack it,
Right, you were in real estate where you,
so,
you can't.
But you gotta do what you gotta do. Mm-hmm. I will say enough people noticed that I was, kind of cooler to be around and asked me, like, what was it? And so I told them about this class I was taking, and they were like, wow, I mean, can I do that? That sounds wonderful. But to your question about the symptoms, okay, most of us know the basic ones that we've all heard about, right? Exhaustion. So deep that you can't rest enough to ever make it go away. Ill health, just a general feeling of ill well-being in all realms, and not quite knowing why or what it is, like you're getting checked for stuff. Nothing's really popping up, and yet you're still feeling like something's not right. Poor temper, snapping at people. I know I was doing that. Very unfun time for the people around me. Who's ever felt any of those things? Okay, so those are the ones we've all heard of. But the one that's really surprising to people that I learned myself, and now I have triple learned, 1,000,000 times learned with my clients, and I work with them on, is that the very first sign and the very first thing that starts going down the tubes is the loss of your sense of humor. And people initially are like, what? And then they're like, wait a minute, that did happen to me. So it's a loss of sense of humor, loss of connection to joy, loss of being able to even remember what you think is fun anymore. People ask you that question and you just are like, it's just an impossible question. So,
my goal in life was to be left alone.
Yeah.
That was my idea of fun, right?
Yeah. When that's really your ideal weekend, that's tough stuff. Now, good news for everyone here. We're going to get into this a little bit later. So you've got these cool note cards and pens on your seat. Hang on to them because we're going to do a little activity around fun in a bit.
So you kind of figure out, all right, I got to do something. But as I mentioned, one of my problems was that it looked so big to kind of find a therapist and how am I going to evaluate them and how am I going to decide if I like them or not or whether they're credible or not. And the whole thing was kind of, overwhelming. And I was emotionally shut down. So how was I going to figure out if I clicked with them? Mm-hmm. And so really, what are the first steps? I mean, what does work when you're in this state? What do you do first? What are some of the things you can do?
First of all, I hear that. And anybody who's been deep in burnout can really understand how ridiculous it sounds when someone gives you tips from the internet or things to do and add and buy so that you could fix yourself when you're thinking, this whole culture is why I'm this much of a disaster in the first place. So it seems offensive even. So I just want to start off by saying, yes. Here's the bad news. Bad news first. It took a little while to get here, deep into burnout, so it's going to take a little bit of time to get back out. But the good news is it's totally doable. It's a very step-by-step process. You just start right in the beginning, right where you are. And the roadmap that the book leads folks through, although the concepts are universal, the process is fairly universal, the specifics about how each person will apply it to their own lives are very unique as every person in here. Step 1, recognizing burnout. What is it? Seeing it in yourself. And along with that means ditching all the guilt and the shame and the misunderstandings that we have. We think of ourselves as being a failure, but we haven't failed to get here. We've been doing what we've been taught to do from birth. You can't fail at something that was impossible anyway, and it's impossible to do multiple full-time jobs, paid, domestic, community, whoever, all at the same time, perfectly and delightfully, without even spending 1 second on maintaining yourself. It's just impossible. And so the other thing that is important to ditch is this work-life balance nonsense. Because when you talk about that, you think just the way that the phrase is formulated, work-life, works first, works primary. Everybody else just kind of fights for crumbs, you know? That fun class you want to take, that's definitely a crumb. Your kids, hopefully they're not crumbs. You know, like everybody's just trying to fight for time around that. And so when I talk about that, I just flip it. Life-work balance. We have life. It's a big umbrella of life. Isn't that cool? And work is but one part. It's a really important part. We want to do good work. It's important for finding our purpose and using our gifts in the world. And that isn't it. That's not all there is. And everything doesn't have to fight for a crumb around that. It's also our loved ones. It's also our passions. It's also our gifts. It's also exercise. It's also eating good. It's also sleeping. It's all those things that keep us well-rounded and wonderful. So we start with all of that. And once that's all out of the way, we've got our mind ready to, okay, we can start on step 1. Step 1 is making space. So there's a whole section on getting rid of stuff. We've already talked about how our plates are already too full. So that means we need to get rid of some things to make room. So the first section of the book is around making space physically in your home, in your office, making space mentally and finding the support you need to do that, whether it's therapy, a stress reduction class, a mindfulness practice. There's so many things out there that we can do that many of them are not expensive and not wildly and crazily time consuming, but it's going to take a little bit of experimentation to find what makes sense for us. And then making space in our schedules, which means learning about setting boundaries. After that, then we rebuild. We've made all this great space now, so we're going to rebuild habits, vision, mindsets, practices that actually work for us and that are actually going to get us closer and closer to the life that we want to be living and off of this sort of random hamster wheel to nowhere we were headed on before that was not intentional. And once we've done that, the last section, which is really important, is about sustaining our gains. Because we can do a lot of fun things in this world and have an epiphany and then just go right back where we were. Yep. The second a stressor happens, which it will. Life happens. And life is really hard sometimes. And really tough things happen. And it's stressful. And that's not just going to stop happening. Change is part of life. And so we talk about resilience and joy as being really important tools in our toolbox of sustaining our gains.
Yeah, so looking at especially at the first step, so I want to make a little space, and even that is difficult because I'm going to have to get away from, I have to do everything anyone might ever want me to do. And so maybe I could just clear something out of the house, maybe just take something that doesn't have much emotional content and kind of get that box out the door, and now I've kind of started. Yes. I mean, what are some examples of how this, here we are, we're completely freaked out.
Yes.
What are some examples of getting started?
I think that's a perfect example. And we do start with making physical space for a few reasons. One, Marie Kondo was correct and a genius when she said that when you make room in your physical space, you actually do make room in your mind and your mental space too. It just is true that it happens. And decluttering my house was one of the very first things I did. I didn't realize back then I was making this whole roadmap. It took me getting out of it to look back and be like, oh, that was actually a useful thing I did. So it's also really helpful because it's like an early win and it's so visible. Or like, boom, I just decluttered this closet. I am doing things in this world. I am moving forward. I am getting rid of things that don't serve me, and haha. And as we go through it, bit by bit, it does start to crack open some of that calcified mindset that's been there for a while.
Okay, yeah, I could see that. Just picking something that's got emotional stuff attached, that's not going to work. But some drawer that's, overwhelmed with junk, dead batteries. Okay, I can deal with dead batteries. I've got no emotional attachment to dead batteries. I can get them out of here.
Yes.
And so then the feeling of, okay, I did something. We move along a bit. Mm-hmm. And so slowly that then begins to get something a bit bigger, and maybe learning how to say no a bit, maybe with some magazine salesman who comes to the door, right? Not something like my manager or,
yes.
relatives,
low stakes boundary setting.
Yeah, something low stakes. Someone wants to sell me a magazine about car racing, which I have absolutely no interest in. But, I don't want to make them unhappy, so I kind of, I feel I should buy the mag. And it's like, no, I'm not going to get it.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. Right.
And then you just close that door.
God, I'm not California. Go back and think, wow, I actually did it.
It is. And we joke about it, and it's funny, and it is a hard set of skills to learn, boundary setting. For a lot of people, we were not taught to have any or to even know what it means. Like, that was just not acceptable. And so if this is a foreign concept to you, it's going to take a minute. It's going to feel scary, like, oh my God, this is the end of the world. I put down a boundary. That's it for me.
Your parents may not have wanted you to have any boundaries.
Yes. Or exactly. Many of us were not raised to learn them. And so learning them, like you said, in kind of more approachable things that feel less life and death is a really good place to start. But here's another, this is the whole overarching point of the book too. Each step we take just strengthens that muscle. We just get a little more comfortable, and you can be setting boundaries like a beast in no time. I mean, really, if you there's a whole bunch of scripts in there to just things that you can say to people in ways that don't feel outrageous. And then there's also just plain old no, which without an explanation, that's like, that's a varsity level skill. You're going to need a little bit of time before you're able to just be like, no. And like walk away, right?
Wow.
That's not something, you're not going to be able to do that.
Already.
I know. Right. Because you don't need to apologize for living or give an explanation for every single thing you ever, I need to take a walk. 'Cause if I don't take a walk, then I don't really feel well, and my mind needs it, my body. Okay, stop doing that. Just say, I'm unavailable, thank you, I have a conflict at that time. And then you do your walk taking, your Bridgerton watching, your whatever you need to be doing. You just do what you need to do to maintain your health in all the ways.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean that idea of not having to explain it.
Yeah.
What someone said once, no is a complete sentence.
It can be.
Yeah, there's a kind of yeah. So. I know that you had an activity to talk about, but I don't know if we're at that point yet. Or
I do.
You want to do that now?
Are we feeling ready? I mean, are our engines revved up a little bit? Okay, so we are going to do one of the activities from the book, just to give you a sense, well, it's a variation, to give you a sense of kind of what goes on. This is not just me jibber-jabbering to you and you going blah, blah, blah. It's sharing a set of skills and themes and insights that you can then apply to your own life in ways that are meaningful for you. So at the end of each chapter, there's a set of what I'm calling reflection activities. And they're meant for you to just go ahead and have that rubber meet the road a little bit and apply things to your life. So on your seat, like I mentioned, there's a card. It's got a cool sparkler on one side, but if you turn it over, it's mostly blank. And you've got a pen. And it's a really awesome pen because I like pens that write nicely. There's a little protector thing. So if yours isn't writing, it's because that's on. There's a little red thing. Okay. So here we go. I have some little notes for myself here. So we're going to chat a little bit about fun, and then we're going to get right to it. And I think Eric wants to go and do this activity with you guys. Do you? Or do you want to stay?
Off we go.
He's like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to do that activity whatsoever. Thanks for offering. Because we're also going to pair up, so now he can be a part of that.
Okay, I'll just wait and see if we have an odd person. No, that can be interpreted the wrong way. If we haven't,
raise your hand if you're an odd person. Noted. Okay, so stretch my legs here a little bit. I have a start off question for you. When was the last time you laughed so hard your stomach hurt? You don't have to write the answer. Just, was it in the last week? I'm talking stomach busting laughing. Okay, last month? Not bad. Last year? Okay, I have no idea. Why are you even asking me this question? It's a terrible question. Okay. That's important to note because laughter is medicine, but we're getting into that more. So Mother Teresa said that joy is a net of love by which we can capture souls. So we think of Mother Teresa as just working, her fingers to the bone, serving the world, martyring herself, suffering and all these things. And yes and no, actually. She was really clear on the fact that joy is 100% essential to showing up full and able to give anything to anyone. And you know who else agrees with her? Well, lots of people. The Mayo Clinic has lots of information on how joy, humor, fun, all of these things that we sort of deem frivolous sometimes are actually essential to our mental health, to our physical health, to our longevity. So why do we ditch it? Why do we put fun last? I know I did for a really long time. And why do we do that? We do that because we think it's non-essential. We get really stuck just grinding along thinking, I just got to get this done. Like I was saying before, we're doing the list. We're very responsible. We're professional. We're serious people. We are adults. And it just doesn't seem that important. And so it gets kicked off the list and it gets put last. And it gets put so far down that we can't even see it. And eventually, again, like I said before, we forget what it is. The other piece of bad news about doing this is that when we constantly disregard our own needs and our own joy, when we constantly betray them, when we put them last, we actually telegraph to others, we don't mean to, but we telegraph to others that our joy is not important, that it's actually not a priority. And we're not saying this, but we are modeling it. And other people look at us and they're like, well, it doesn't seem that important to her. She knows herself better than anyone. And the next thing you know, other people also don't value the things that bring you joy, health, all of it. This just leads to more isolation. And it's really, really, really a heartbreaking thing because once you lose your connection to joy, you're really losing your connection to your core self. I know when I was in a super burned out state, people would ask me, hey, Car, what do you do for fun? And I would say, that's a ridiculous question. Like, I don't even sleep. I don't even have enough time for that. And I certainly don't have enough time for all of that ridiculousness. But of course, I've come to learn now how absolutely heartbreakingly important it is to have a ready answer to that. To know so clearly in my core what it is that lights me up and what brings me joy and what I'm all about in this world and what my values are and what my value is. It is absolutely 100% essential, because when I don't have that connection to joy, I don't have a connection to myself. You have completely disconnected from your inner fire and your entire point of being on the planet, which is sharing your gifts with this world. And when you're disconnected from yourself, how do you think you can connect to anyone else? We cannot. We cannot connect in authentic ways, in real ways, in honest ways. We're just kind of burned out zombies walking around, and we're feeling really lonely about it. So today, we're going to do some good old-fashioned planning. Now, that doesn't sound fun, right? But the reason why we're going to do it is that when we get so focused on all the serious things, we do not make room and time for joy. And we need to make a little bit of conscious space for those. We are going to practice our joy-making muscles so that we can actually have this be something that comes more naturally to us, for those of us who are a little bit out of practice. All right, so if you're ready, I'm going to read to you a series of questions, and they're meant to be very quick response. Might be a little uncomfortable for some people, okay? The reason why I'm not giving you this and having you go off for 3 hours into the desert is that I don't want you overthinking. I do not want your inner cop to come out. I don't want any censorship happening. I don't want the practicality monster coming in. None of it. I want you to just, the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the question, just write down the answer. Okay, you don't have to show this to anyone. No one, you're not getting approval from anybody. So if any of the questions don't spark a response, don't stress. Move on to the next. All right, here we go. What's something that you liked as a kid? What did you like to do as a kid? What about something as a teenager? What did you like as a teen? How about as a 20-something? I see a couple young people in here who, that's a future tense scenario. But for most people, it's pretty past tense. Okay, what did you like to do as a 20-something? I know, don't worry, I'm with you. All right, what do you like to do alone? What do you like to do with your family? And what do you like to do with friends? What's something cool you've been wanting to try that is artistic? Something cool you've been wanting to try that's artistic. And athletic.
Wait, is that the same question?
Yes, so we're going to have a whole list. Something you've been wanting to try that is first artistic, then athletic, and the third one is cerebral. You're going to write the next great American novel, maybe. Okay, someone said no. What about something that's local?
Loco or local?
Loco, no, we'll get to that. Local. But if you heard loco and you want to just do that, I mean, I'm okay with it.
It is San Francisco.
I'm not going to police anything you do. What about far away? All right, something that's free. What would you like to try that's free? How about something expensive? That sounds exciting. What about something quick? And finally, well, we're not to the final, but of this series of questions, long term, something that's long term. You guys are doing great. 2 more. How about something you've long considered impractical, and so you put it into your mental jail? Something you've been dying to try, but it's impractical, allegedly. And finally, what are you scared to try and maybe fail at, but you still want to try it anyway? Okay, now look at your list. I see some nice penmanship. Look at your list and circle the 5 or so, around 5, that speak to you the most, that are resonating with you now that you're stepping back for just a few seconds, giving them a little bit of a look. What are your top 5 of all the stuff that you just wrote? Circle the top 5. You don't have to have a reason why, just the ones that resonate with you the most. All right, now that you've got it down to the top 5, pick one that you think you could make some space for. Like this week. Or next week. Okay, don't freak out. This week or next week. And remember, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be huge, doesn't have to be tiny. It could be any of the whatever speaks to you that you think you can invite into your life and make some space for in the next couple of weeks. And the next thing that we're going to do is you're going to turn to a partner, find a friendly face in this room. There's so many. And spend just a couple minutes sharing whatever insights you feel comfortable. Again, I told you this did not, if you put some private stuff on there, you can keep it private. But just whatever you feel comfortable sharing as far as insights, and share a little bit about some strategy for how you're going to make some space for this. So is it going to be once a week on Saturday morning? What might be the first couple steps? So for example, I learned how to play guitar. I started later in life, in my 40s, which meant it was slow going because my neural pathways for music did not exist. And so first step, buy a guitar. Okay, cool. Next step, either YouTube lessons or a real person, right? So map out in your mind or on your paper the first couple things, and then start to slot those in. So you're doing a little bit of strategy here, because what we want is for you to leave this room with like an actionable plan, and not just this goes in the recycle bin and that was a fun thing I once thought of. Okay, so spend a couple minutes and I'll let you know when it's time to come back. All right, if you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, clap 3 times. I used to be a teacher. Actually, I literally taught middle school in my 20s for a couple of years before my real estate career. That's a tough job. But that's where I learned that. Okay, so take another moment. I'm just going to give you a few seconds on your own to reflect a little bit on the conversation that you just had and the thought process you just had, and make a little mini plan in your mind or on your paper of kind of confirm to yourself, what is the plan? I'm going to Sunday afternoons. I'm going to set aside 30 minutes for this thing. Walking in the woods, taking the first step toward something bigger, learning how to windsurf, whatever. Again, there's no right or wrong. It's just about starting to build that consistency muscle. Two more kind of thoughts about this. One, it's helpful to have an accountability partner in life in general. But think about maybe the person you talk to is a new friend. Maybe there's someone else in your life that you can share this with, and make sure it's a supportive person, okay? Not a naysayer. You don't want one of the people in your life to be like, well, that must sounds nice. You want a person who's gonna really be behind you for this cool new thing you're doing. And you can maybe support them and they can support you in taking these next steps and kind of check in with you in a really friendly way. Like, hello, how's that Sunday morning walk going? And you can say, Sunday morning walk? Oh, yes, I did do that. I recently did an event where a couple people were like, you know what, we're going to take a class together and we're going to sign up and we're going to pay because then we know we're probably going to go. So think about ways that you can help hold yourself to something in a way that feels friendly and not like a club. And the second thing to think about as you're working through this is what might you tell yourself when your brain tries to talk you out of it? Because our brains like us to do the same stuff all the time. No risk. We like to conserve energy. This is what we do. We wake up, we look at our phone, we see how bad the world is, we complain for a half an hour, and that's how so our brain likes to keep us doing what we do. So we want to think about when our brain tries to talk us out of this cool new thing, what will we tell ourselves? And remember, berating ourselves isn't helpful. So the telling yourself isn't, God, you never do anything. The telling yourself is, we're learning new things. So when your brain says, this isn't going well, we're never going to learn this thing, which I did think sometimes playing my guitar, and so did my family. But I also told myself, we're learning, and learning takes time. And so you can make up your own little mini mantra. Maybe you have a favorite quote already in your head. So think about what that is, and I'm going to give you just 30 seconds to think of it and to jot it down a little, because you're going to want that little angel on your shoulder when in a few weeks you're trying to do this thing and you hit a little bit of a roadblock. So what's your encouragement that you'll give yourself? And when you're all finished with that, Eric has a mic. And if anybody feels like sharing something that they came up with about their plans or their insights, that'd be cool. If you just have a question about anything, about this, about burnout in general, about, life, I'll do my best. He's going to come around. So just if you feel like you have something you'd like to share or ask, please do.
Speak.
I think you're okay.
Hi, my name's Rita, and I just recently retired in October, and actually, and I've known Kara for a number of years and saw on LinkedIn that she was now into coaching and she was doing the burnout and stuff. So I actually I wanted to retire, but I kept working, and I didn't know how to stop. There were all kinds of reasons. Mostly money. And I'm sure that's everyone's issue in here. And, I did her sabbatical in a box, and then she was my coach. And so, really what that did was that gave me a little bit more clarity, and it held me accountable. And it, reaffirmed every time I had, a session with her. And so, I just want to say it helped me tremendously. I'm still, on the road of the recovery. But it's going, it's going well, and so much better really than I thought, and definitely so much better than trying to do it by myself. As much as I am a smart person and achieved so much, in my profession, this was something that I knew I couldn't do by myself. I knew it because I couldn't quit. You know, I couldn't do it. I couldn't pull the trigger. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know where to start first, you know, that sort of thing. So I just wanted to share that, that, you know, you can't ever, you're not going to be able to do this alone. And especially her coaching. Another thing was the coaching, which, you know, was like, you know, once a week. And it was great. It was just wonderful. So I just wanted to share
you,
that
Rita.
because it works.
Nice.
Thank you. I have a question about if you have any advice, if you have a partner who is stressed, and well, both my partner and I are stressed, but how would you recommend dealing with someone else in your life that is stressed when you're trying to take the steps to recovery? I'm sure, you know, my partner would love to do the same, but we're on different, sometimes there's just different willingness and different things in life that, you know, like I'm ready to take the steps, but if someone else is not willing, and also if that person's stress is coming into your circle, how do you recommend dealing with that?
That is a fabulous question and a common one. Yeah. Turns out 89% of Americans said they were burned out in 2023, so that's kind of all of us. And so it's probably your partner, too. We can provide support for any of our loved ones, and one of the best ways to do that, I've learned over time, is simply by listening and not giving a lot of tips unless they have specifically asked. This applies to teenagers and everyone. So kind of a very supportive ear, just trying to let them know that you are there to listen when you can. Now, the old put your, you know, mask on before everyone else in the airplane thing that we all hear about all the time is true in this situation too, because there's not a whole lot we can really do for anybody else when we ourselves are really just kind of barely scraping by. And so this is where it's really important for you to take care of you, and without necessarily like checking. You just have to do it. And as you start to do it, sometimes even just seeing someone else make a shift and modeling how that looks can be inspiring to others in our lives to say like, okay, well, that morning walk seems to be doing you pretty right. You know, not that they're going to do all the same things as you, but also just your stress reduction. Everything that we do to help ourselves be healthier just emanates out to the world. And it absolutely helps in kind of an indirect way there, which is why taking good care of ourselves, self-care, whatever, I call it self-possession, knowing yourself well enough to know what you need and then doing it. It's why that's not selfish. It's the least selfish thing you can do. You have to get yourself strong and healthy and happy, because then you actually are able to hold that space for that person in a way that you wouldn't otherwise before. And just go about making yourself happy. Invite them to things. You know, you can offer to participate in things, and then you can also just know that we all are on our own path and learning things at our own pace, and have to come to these realizations on our own too. We support each other, but we also give space, knowing that we all have to do it come to that conclusion on our own too.
Hi, I'm Liz.
Hi, Liz.
And I'm reading your book, and I love it.
Hey.
I had a bit of a epiphany here, and I think it's from just showing up here today and doing this. And it probably won't be a surprise to everybody, but I was looking at this going, how am I going to find time? You know, everything feels so urgent on the to-do list. And I realized, oh, how about I spend so much on my phone? I'm so addicted to my phone. And that just
very addictive.
Really came to me, like all that time scrolling the news and Instagram, which I think is relaxing, but it's not.
Yeah.
And then if I maybe set a boundary with myself to not do that so much, I have more time for these things.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's such a huge point. And Eric was actually just saying that to me a few minutes ago is like, first of all, step one, just the fact that anybody who felt exhausted and burned out came here is like a 10 out of 10 experience already. And you deserve all the best even for that, because just getting out of that, coming, if you don't live in the city, like getting over that bridge on Bar, like that is a whole thing. And so the fact that anybody is even here is wonderful. Step two, all this wonderful brainstorm, put it into practice. And what you've talked about, what you've mentioned is so important. I do talk about in the book too, because I don't want anybody to feel ashamed. Those phones are brilliant. And by the way, like 1 million psychologists went into programming those suckers so they could mine our brains and then just suck our lifeblood away, because what's for sale is our attention. And our phones are like cool too and useful and obviously they're convenient. And I use screen time for myself. This is not just for children. Like, we need to use that for ourselves so that we don't go down that rabbit hole, or go take a moment to ask ourselves how we feel after doing something. I mean, the news, no, I don't. I have a very, very sharp, very hard and fast news diet that'll suck away not only your time, but your zest for life. You will watch that and then you'll be like, well, I guess the world's ending. What's the point of even getting out of bed today? Because that's what the news is about. It's really about kind of highlighting the worst few house fires in your neighborhood. And like, how is this helping you? Our brains are not evolved to digest all this. And how is that setting you up for success? We're set up for success when we wake up and take a few breaths, take a little walk, and now we're like, haha, I can smile at people. I can have this day. So you just found the time. Yes. And I'm glad you said that, because some people are probably sitting here thinking, girl, I don't have time for any of this. But we can find time if we just put things that matter, that give joy, at the top. Because we're never going to make it to the bottom of the to-do list. And the idea here is that we're going to put the things that are most important at the top, so that at the end of the day, when we're out of time, the things that fall off aren't the things that matter most, aren't the things that we're going to really regret having not done at the end of our time.
Hi, Cara. Thanks for the talk. So I think I've been in burnout for a while, but I have been trying to work on it since COVID. And so worked with therapists, and I've actually found somatic coaching has been really helpful for me. But I have my joy back, and I'm trying to do more activities that bring me joy.
Amazing.
But I always am hitting this wall with work, because work continues to take more than 40 hours. It bleeds over to 60 hours, and then it's like maybe some days is like some weeks it's 80 hours. But how do you start to push back on your boss? Like, the boundary thing is really, really tough for me. Like, you try to tell them I'm only capable of doing X, and they still give you 9 projects and say the 9 projects are due at the end of the month and you have to perform. And so I actually decided to do a failed project by getting a bad performance review last year. But then they threaten you, like, you can only get 2 before you're subject to whatever. And I had never gotten a bad performance review in my 20 years of being in the workforce. And it was devastating. It took a really long time to get over that. And a lot of the things that they brought up were not things I saw as failures, but as opportunities. And so, like, when do you push back? When do you decide, like, I can't do this anymore? Like, yeah.
That is so tough. And it's so common, and because our bosses are burned out too. They're thinking, well, I don't have any help. Who knows what they're thinking? But there's actually a whole section on boundary setting, and there are entire books written about this, by the way. But I do offer a number of ways to frame a boundary set in a way that feels still like you're on the team. So one example would be, I understand that that's important now, and that's a new piece of information. Here's all the work on the plate. Let's discuss priorities, and I want to make sure that I'm doing the most important things first. And there's only so much capacity in a month. So let's talk about that. And then if there's continues to be pushback, you can say, okay, well, here are some things I think, some supports that might be useful to help us get there together, and really kind of try to put yourself in the position of being a co-problem solver on it. Some managers are more skilled than others, and some might be able to take that and hear like, oh, okay, let's figure this out together. Skilled managers know that burning you out to ill health is actually a horrible idea, not only for you, but for the company. Turnover costs $55,000 a person or whatever. And sending people off to the hospital for burnout related illness is, I know several people who've had to do that. And so the time to set the boundary is when you know, and you know when you know. And you know that your health is starting to suffer. You know when you've lost your sense of humor. Honestly, it's just, you get to a point where you know you need to say something. Sometimes you can get to a place with your supervisor where it feels really kind of healthy and team-like, and you can set a healthy boundary, and sometimes you can't. And I know people who have done all there is to do to be as effective and professional about it and caring and whatever, but the workplace doesn't offer that same care back to them. And in those cases, oftentimes that person decides to make a different decision. I mean, it's not the only place in the whole wide world to work. It can feel scary to make that, especially when you're super burned out. The notion of looking for a new job sounds also ridiculous. Yeah. Because you're thinking, that's a lot of work. And it is. But we have to at least put in the effort. And if you want, we can chat a little bit after. There's just a whole lot of ways to frame a conversation in a way that's going to get you closer to probably where you want to be. But the end game is, if your well-being is just not cared about ultimately, then that's a good clue that place is not going to be a good fit for you.
Thank you.
I love the activity because in brainstorming and brain dumping and then choosing just one, they all had equal weight and equal worth. Mm-hmm. So I had some that like logically were the better choice. But when I had to choose just one, I chose learning how to ride a motorcycle. I want to do it forever. With my sister. We're doing it together. But I was like, before I'm like, okay, the more logical one would be like prepping for maybe a new job or whatever. But it allowed them all to have equal weight. And so maybe my aha was, if I took time more often to just brain dump and give equal value to all the things I want in life, could I pick things more often that just brought pure joy without worrying about how everyone else would feel or who would impact, but like what do I actually truly want at the core? Yeah. I think it was very cool because you get out of your head and like the weights and measures, there's a freedom to like choose the one thing you really want. So I never would have guessed it'd be the top one, but it was. So it's just very cool activity.
Oh, so cool.
That's cool.
That might mean I have to learn a motorcycle. That's my sister.
You're welcome.
Okay, so this may be a weird question. I am not burned out, but I think I'm on a path to it. Mm-hmm. What can I do now before I get there?
Just knowing that already is just fabulous, right? I mean, it feels bad, but it's fabulous. And the reason why it's fabulous is that you're not so far down. The quicker you catch it, the quicker you're sailing right out of it is going to be. The longer you ignore it and pretend like it's not a problem, the longer your climb out is going to be, just because of the level of depletion. So I think, just knowing that and then stepping back and just taking stock. Okay, where do I feel out of alignment? Where do I feel like I'm not investing in the things that matter most to me in my life, including myself, right? Including my health, the people that matter to me. So stepping back and looking at all of that, and then thinking about how you can make sure that your foundation is always strong. Like we have to see to our food, our sleep, our relationships, our exercise. We have to, all of that stuff is a requirement. It's just not a non-negotiable. So to the extent that all that stuff's already fallen off the list, step one is just gently putting that back and then doing a little time audit. How else am I spending my time? Is it 2 hours a day on social media? Okay, well, that might not be the greatest use of time for where you want to go in life. And it may not, and is it getting you closer to what really matters? Like one of the exercises in the book is, I call it the fever dream time machine. And it's like a 7-year out visualization of all the things where you're going to be. And it's a kind of a pie in the sky thing, but we do it so that we can again release some of our adulting inner cop and allow ourselves to do that so that we can then say, okay, well, if that's that, of all the stuff I'm doing right now, which of this stuff actually feeds that? And which of the stuff that I'm doing right now doesn't? And then it becomes all of a sudden quite easy to make decisions as to what's making it on the to-do list and what's important to you and what's getting in and what's getting a hard kick out the door.
Well, I'll ask a question, which is, at what point does one decide that, okay, I really need to see, a psychologist, or there may be, some real issues here? You just try the beginning and it kind of gets stuck solid. How do you, make that decision that this is a, tough case?
Well, I think you can try a lot of self and friend and family supports first and see. And if you're not feeling improvement, then it might be time to call in a pro, whether that's, if you are having symptoms that are concerning to you, mental health wise or physical health wise, you got to go to the pros first. I did that. I was going to all kinds of doctors actually, just to try to figure out what was happening. And that's perfectly beautiful first step, because you do want to rule out, stuff that's going to require professional assistance. But if you even think for a second that might be worth checking out, that's probably a really important clue that it is. Not that you have to do it, but that it's worth investigating, and it's worth talking to trusted people about, and it's worth, starting to figure out who might be able to offer that support to you. I did mention there's this thing called mindfulness stress reduction, MBSR. It's a class you can take. It's not therapy exactly. It's like a group class. You can do it online or you can do it in person. And it really just offers you a lot of important life skills that a lot of us just didn't get because our caregivers didn't have them. And so we're learning it now and hopefully passing it on to the next generation. But starting off with like group things like that can be really good too. Because in doing that, you can say, okay, this is feeling useful. Or you can say, this is actually not meeting all the needs that I have. There are some things I really need a higher level.
And then you're more focused. I suppose that you've got a better idea what you're looking for.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We have time for one more question. Up. Someone right here.
Hello, Cara.
Hello.
Neighbor, awesome friend. So Ann Chang, and just huge fan of your book. You can listen to the audio version. I love that so much. Really needed that when I was hanging out with the in-laws recently. They're great. It's so helpful in so many ways. But her voice is just there. You like her. You like her voice. So question around, you've been coaching so many people. Like, what is really like working for people? What gets them to the aha? And secondly, I'll just say you're awesome. Like, meetup on like LinkedIn, 5 minutes got me. Okay. Oh, sorry. Just that it was just so helpful. She also offers that. So, yeah.
Sorry, I got off track. What are we doing? Oh, what's really working for people? What's really working for people is the notion that they have the power right now and every ingredient they need to start to make this shift. They do not need to wait for any other specific thing to happen. And just knowing that, like, I hate to admit it, my descent in burnout was a result of many decisions and kind of non-decisions, just kind of trudging into things getting shoved into things sometimes that that I made, though, that I allowed into my life. And the turning point was me knowing that the person who was going to help get myself out was me, deciding that I was worthy, that I had the power to do it, and that I would figure it out. I would find the tools. And there's so many supports out there. I mean, I have read hundreds and thousands, honestly, of books at this point in my life. There's so much out there. And that's one of the reasons why, by the way, I wrote this book, is because the amount of research and self practicing on yourself that happened was lengthy. So it's like the Reader's Digest version, Cliff's Notes of getting out of burnout, but just knowing that you can, and then knowing that it's a step-by-step process, and that it's not going to be perfect, but that it will be absolutely worth it and beautiful. I mean, it's our life we're talking about. So finding out, giving ourselves the grace to just do it in a step-by-step process, mess and all, is very, very, very empowering.
Yeah, I in my own experience, finally figuring out that I was going to do something about the job, whatever, was lightening. It was like, oh, just, I was, there's a door out there, now I can find it. Whereas before I'd forgotten there was even a door. And that made things a bit easier. Okay, well, our gratitude
Thank you.
to Kara Hauser for being with us today.
Thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure. So happy you all came.
Thank you for coming out here. We're also grateful to our audience here, as well as those listening to the recording. And now this meeting of the Commonwealth Club of California, commemorating its 121st year of enlightened discussion, is adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.